On June 8, 2024, Lil Jeff Q50's close friend and brother in the streets was shot and killed in broad daylight. Since that day, Q50 hasn't been the same. From drug addiction to his non-stop beef with ops, Q50 might not even make it to the end of the year. Let me break it down. Q50's downward spiral. Real talk, if you've been following the Chicago drill scene, you already know what's been happening with Bloodhound Q50. My guy has been on a straight crash out mission. Ever since his day one, Lil Jeff got smoked back in June 2024. And I ain't talking about just going through it emotionally. Nah, this young brother has been knee deep in the pills and powder, using drugs to cope with the trauma in a way that's got everybody from the streets to the suburbs watching and wondering if we're about to witness another young black talent OD before he even hits his prime.
It is time for an intervention because, mark my words, Q50 don't got long before he either gonna be strung out, super strung out, more strung out than he already is, to the point to where he can't even damn near function, or he gonna around and OD. I've seen it many times, and I'm not speaking death on Q50. I'm actually trying to save this young man.
Bloodhound Q50, government name Mick Wiley Cooper, is only 20 years old, but he's been living a life that would break most grown men twice his age. This shorty from Chicago's South Side, repping the Bloodhound Drill City faction, has been publicly connected to heavy drug use. We talking Percocet, Perks, and cocaine, and it's all tied to trying to deal with the devastating losses he's taken. Now, before we dive deep into how bad Q50's drug situation has gotten, you gotta understand something. Homie been through it. And when I say through it, I mean the type of traumatic experiences that would have suburban kids in therapy for years, probably on prescription meds with their parents monitoring everything. But Q50, he's from a different world, where therapy ain't even on the table, where you deal with your depression internally, where showing weakness can get you violated in these streets. Let's break down the drug timeline, because it's important to see how this situation escalated from bad to worse to somebody please help this man before it's too late. The first major public incident that had everybody in their feelings happened in July 2025 when Q50 was on a live stream with some streamer named Convy. People watching started noticing something was off, like really off. Q50 appeared to be crushing up and snorting what looked like Percocet right there on camera, not even trying to hide it, just doing his thing like it was regular. But yo, what made this situation even more heartbreaking wasn't just seeing homie get high on stream, it was what happened next. His Z Tenzai's girlfriend came into the frame and straight up confronted him, and y'all, the argument that followed was raw as hell. She was gesturing all animated like, pressing him about being a drug addict, expressing her frustration with his habits while he was leaning back all defensive. Any of y'all who've had someone close to you caught up in addiction know exactly what that looked like, the desperation of trying to save someone who might not want to be saved. The comment section went crazy. People were talking about his apparent dependency, with fans saying things like, bro really strung out, and somebody get Q50 some help before it's too late. The concern was real, and it was universal. From the hood to the burbs, everybody could see Shorty was going through it. Now, here's where it gets tricky. This wasn't actually the first time Q50 had been caught on camera allegedly using drugs. There was an earlier video from before April 2025 that showed him seemingly snorting a perk, but when DJ Vlad pressed him about it during his April interview, Q50 had a whole different story. According to Q50, that first video was capped, just him trolling for clout, trying to generate buzz in a genre where controversy equals streams and streams equal money. He positioned it as fake, as movie prop powder, as him playing with people's emotions for publicity, and maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth about that particular incident. In drill culture, where image is everything and shock value sells, it wouldn't be the first time someone staged something wild for attention. But here's the thing, by July 2025, when his girl was in his face on that live stream, when she was calling him out about his habits, when the defensive body language and the argument were happening in real time, that wasn't no publicity stunt. That was real life, real addiction, real consequences playing out for everybody to see. You can fake snorting powder for the gram, but you can't fake that kind of confrontation. You can't script the look in someone's eyes when the person they love is destroying themselves and they feel helpless to stop it. But if that July incident had people concerned, what happened next in August had people straight up alarmed. And this is where Q50's drug use intersected with the ongoing street violence in a way that showed just how reckless and self-destructive he'd become. On August 18, 15, 2025, Q50 had just survived what can only be described as an assassination attempt. His whip got hit with over 60 shots in St. Louis, automatic fire, the whole nine, in an ambush that reportedly stemmed from a $60K theft dispute. 4 people, including Q50, were critically injured. His tires were flattened. His vehicle was Swiss cheese. By all accounts, homie should have been dead, should have been another young brother caught slipping who didn't make it home. But Q50 survived. And how did he choose to let everybody know he was still breathing? He went on Instagram Live and snorted a line of white powder, believed to be cocaine, right there on camera, essentially telling Death and his ops that he was untouchable. Video of the IG Live shows Q50 in a kitchen, preparing the powder on what looked like his phone or a counter, then bending down and hitting that line while the comments went absolutely berserk. People typing, "They say Q50 got shot." Others saying, "This nigga really out here wildin'." After he snorted it, he rubbed his nose, grinned at the camera all sinister-like, and declared, "Bloodhound Q50 is alive." Yo, let that sink in for a minute. This young brother had just been in a shooting where his car took 60+ rounds, where by all rights, he should be planning his funeral, and his response was to get on live and do cocaine to prove he was still standing. That's not just reckless, that's suicidal behavior wrapped up in bravado and street credibility. That's someone who stopped caring whether they live or die, someone who's numbing pain so deep that even a near-death experience can't shake them back to reality. The internet's reaction was divided. Some people in the comments were like, "He's trolling again," thinking it was another stunt for attention. Others were genuinely concerned, dropping prayer hands emojis, saying things like, "Somebody get bro some help before we gotta pour out liquor for him too." But here's what's crucial. Unlike that first Perk video where Q50 claimed it was fake, he never came out and said this cocaine incident was staged. No follow-up interview explaining it away. No social media post saying, "Y'all thought I was really snorting coke, I was just playing." Just silence, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. Now, around this time, people in the know started breaking down just how serious Q50's drug problem had become. One YouTube commentator, speaking from a place of real concern, laid it out in a video that went semi-viral. They pointed out how, before Jeff died, both Jeff and Q50 were heavy on the perks, doing them on camera during interviews like it was nothing, like popping pills was just part of the drill lifestyle, something to flex about rather than something to be worried about. But here's the cold, hard truth that suburban kids and their parents need to understand about street-level drug use in 2025. Fentanyl. That word right there should make everybody's blood run cold. This ain't the pills your mom takes for her back pain that she gets from the pharmacy with a prescription. This is street-level Percocet, which means it's almost definitely cut with fentanyl, that synthetic opioid that's killing people by the thousands because the margin between getting high and overdosing is razor thin. The commentator went further. Let that marinate. We're not just talking about someone who likes to pop pills occasionally to take the edge off. We're talking about a full-blown fentanyl addiction, the same drug that's been dropping bodies across America, from the hood to the suburbs, from the projects to college campuses. Fentanyl doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't give second chances. There was even an arrest back in December 2024, where Q50 caught a 12-month sentence for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon, with charges mentioning various drugs. Q50 denied ownership, claiming it wasn't even my gun, and that the drugs weren't his either. But whether those specific drugs were his or not, the pattern was becoming undeniable. Q50 was spiraling, getting sloppy, and both the streets and the law were starting to catch up. But to really understand how Q50 got to this point, we need to go back to the moment that broke him. We need to talk about the day his world ended, June 8th, 2024, when Lil Jeff got murdered, and Q50 was right there to witness it all. Jeff's murder and Q50's breaking point. Before Q50 became the drug-addicted drill rapper everybody's worried about, before the cocaine on IG Live and the perks on stream, he was just a young brother from Chicago trying to make it out through music alongside his day one, his brother, his partner in crime, Bloodhound Lil Jeff. Jeff, whose government name was Jeffrey Lamar Harris Jr., was everything Q50 wasn't. Loud, aggressive, volatile, the type to move reckless and worry about consequences later. While Q50 was more laid back, more calculated, Jeff was out front claiming bodies in his lyrics, talking about having up to 11 kills, moving like he was untouchable in a city where thinking you're untouchable is exactly what gets you touched. These two came up together in the Bloodhound Drill City faction tied to the Black Disciples on Chicago's South Side. Their chemistry on tracks like BH4L, Bloodhound for Life, was undeniable. You could hear the bond, the brotherhood, the type of connection that goes beyond just making music together. They were really like that, really moving as a unit, really had each other's backs in the streets and in the booth. But Chicago's streets don't care about brotherhood or loyalty or potential. The streets only respect one thing: violence. And the beefs Q50 and Jeff were caught up in with Trap City, Risky Road, STL, EBT, they weren't the kind of beefs you squash with a diss track or a social media post. These were blood feuds, the kind where people on both sides were dropping, where every loss demanded retaliation, where the cycle of violence just kept spinning faster and faster until it was inevitable that someone wasn't making it out. June 8, 2024, around 5:14 in the evening, Jeff's luck ran out on the 6600 block of South Rhodes Avenue in Woodlawn. He was ambushed during what was supposed to be a retaliatory slide, chasing someone, possibly from Trap City. Word is, it might have been a cat named Man Man, into what turned out to be a trap house, and that's when everything went sideways. Surveillance footage later showed Jeff firing first, but he got overwhelmed quickly. They mag dumped on him from a porch. We talking 19 shots that hit him, 45 shell casings on the ground, automatic fire that turned a Southside block into a war zone. Jeff didn't stand a chance. At only 17 years old, with his whole life ahead of him, with a drill career that was just starting to pop, Jeff got smoked in the most brutal way possible. And Q50 was in the getaway car. Close enough to catch a bullet to the leg, close enough to hear every shot, close enough to know his mans was getting cooked, and there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. But here's what separates Q50 from a lot of cats who would have just hit the gas and gotten ghost. He stayed. While bullets were probably still echoing in the air, while staying meant risking his own life, Q50 made a decision that tells you everything about who he was before the drugs took over. He refused to leave Jeff dying on enemy soil, wouldn't let his brother's body lay in the street like garbage, wouldn't let the ops have that disrespect. In an interview that came later, Q50 described what he witnessed with a bluntness that's hard to hear. When he says overcooked, that's not slang or flexing. That's Q50's way of saying Jeff's body was so shot up, so destroyed by those 19 bullets, that picking him up and trying to save him was like trying to hold together something that was already past the point of no return. Q50 drove Jeff to the hospital himself, his own leg bleeding, his hands covered in his best friend's blood, his mind probably starting to fracture under the weight of what he'd just seen. But it was too late. Jeff was gone. Another young black boy from Chicago who never made it to see 18. Another statistic in a city that's been losing its youth to gun violence for decades. The aftermath hit different for Q50 than it did for the rest of the drill community. Sure, Jeff's pops went live vowing revenge, saying it's not over and that the Q50 saga continues. Sure, Jeff's cousin Jada posted emotional tributes and rappers across Chicago paid their respects. Sure, the music videos and social media posts poured in, everybody claiming they loved Jeff, everybody acting like they were his day one. But for Q50, none of that mattered. The tributes, the RIP posts, the suddenly spiking streams on their collaborative tracks, none of it could bring back the person he'd held dying in his arms. Q50 later admitted that at first, it just didn't feel real. That dissociation, that numbness that happens when trauma is so severe, your brain can't process it, because processing it would mean completely breaking down. But that numbness doesn't last forever. It can't. And when reality finally hit Q50, when the fact that Jeff was never coming back, that he'd never record another track with his brother, that he'd have to navigate the drill scene and the streets without his day one, that's when the real spiral began. The truth is, there was no therapy, no professional help, no healthy way to process the trauma of watching your best friend get murdered. Just pushing it down, keeping it bottled up, telling himself he'd be alright when anybody with eyes could see he was anything but alright. And this is where the drugs really entered the picture. This is where Q50 started looking for anything, any substance, any chemical that would make the pain stop, that would let him sleep without seeing Jeff's body, that would let him wake up without immediately remembering that his brother was gone. By late 2024, Q50 was openly talking about using perks and coke to cope. In an IG live that shocked a lot of people, Q50 said something that revealed just how deep his pain ran. "I ain't slowing down on perks for you, Jeff, only for the guys." Think about what that means, fam. He was essentially telling his dead friend, or maybe telling himself, trying to justify his addiction, that he couldn't stop using even in Jeff's memory. The only thing that might make him pump the brakes was concern for the living members of their crew. Fans started noticing the change immediately. On social media, on YouTube, on Twitter X, everywhere you looked, people were saying Q50 been tripping ever since Lil Jeff died. And they weren't wrong. The Q50 who emerged from Woodlawn that day was fundamentally different from the one who'd been in that car before the shooting started. He'd witnessed something that changed him on a cellular level, something that broke something inside him that maybe couldn't be fixed with therapy or time or anything except the temporary numbness that drugs provided, and the losses kept coming. Lil Scoom, another Drill City affiliate, got killed in July 2024, less than 2 months after Jeff. More grief, more trauma, more reasons to pick up the pills and the powder and make it all go away, even if just for a few hours. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. What good is success if you're too high to enjoy it? What's the point of making it out if you're destroying yourself in the process? Q50 was getting everything he and Jeff had dreamed about: the deal, the streams, the recognition. But he was doing it while self-medicating to the point where concerned observers were openly wondering if we were about to watch another young talent OD in real time. The warnings nobody could get through. The most heartbreaking part of Q50's story isn't even the drug use itself. It's that people tried to save him. People saw what was happening, saw where this was headed, and tried to throw him a lifeline. And Q50, trapped in his grief and his addiction and his belief that he was already damned, couldn't grab hold. The clearest example came during Q50's sit-down with DJ Vlad in April 2025. Vlad, who's been in the hip-hop game long enough to have seen this movie play out too many times, really tried, and I mean really tried, to get through to Q50 about the dangers of drug abuse in the rap industry. Vlad started by bringing up Juice WRLD, one of Chicago's brightest stars who burned out way too fast. The details Vlad dropped were heavy. Juice was taking 10 pills while other people were taking one. Every song was about drugs, and he died at 21, just 1 year older than Q50 was during the interview. Vlad explained how Juice died, swallowing pills on a private plane when police were about to search it, overdosing right there, gone at 21 when he should have had decades ahead of him. A senseless death that could have been avoided if Juice had just let them find the drugs, taken the charge, dealt with the legal consequences instead of the ultimate consequence. When Vlad brought up Q50's Percocet video, Q50 gave his publicity stunt explanation. But what happened next is what really matters. Vlad dropped some real OG wisdom that every young person, from the hood to the suburbs, needs to hear. Let that marinate. Q50 was signed to Signal Records through Columbia, the same label umbrella where Juice WRLD was under Bibby's Grade A. Q50 was literally walking the same path as someone who died from the exact same drugs Q50 was reportedly using. The roadmap to disaster was right there, clear as day, and Vlad was trying to get Q50 to see it before it was too late. Real talk, Vlad was speaking facts. In the rap game, especially in drill where everybody's trying to out-tough each other, drugs become normalized. When you got money, when you got access, when everybody around you is popping pills or doing lines, it becomes easy to slip into addiction without even realizing it. One day you're using to cope with stress, the next day you can't function without it. Vlad even shared his personal story, his close friend who OD'd on cocaine at 23, how sitting at that funeral made Vlad vow never to touch that stuff. That's real mentorship right there, an older head trying to save a younger one by sharing the pain he's experienced. Then Vlad brought it home, connecting it directly to Q50's situation. That right there is the core issue. Q50 had been through enormous trauma. Jeff's death, Scoom's death, the shooting he survived, and he'd never sought professional help. No therapist, no counselor, nobody trained to help him process what he'd been through. Just him, his pain, and the drugs that promised temporary relief. Vlad even suggested therapy, explaining how he'd been going for years, how it helps to unpack trauma with a professional instead of carrying it all alone. He painted a picture of what Q50's future could look like if he got help, not dying young, like so many before him, but living to 51 like Vlad, enjoying wealth and success and travel, seeing the world, experiencing life beyond the streets and the violence and the pain. That image had to hurt. Q50 and Jeff both alive, both signed, both making it, celebrating together instead of Q50 grieving alone. But it also seemed to reinforce Q50's fatalistic mindset, that belief he'd already expressed, that he, Jeff, and Scoom were all going to hell anyway, so what was the point? Fast forward to October 2025, and Q50 is still out here, still moving reckless. He survived that 60-shot ambush in St. Louis, came out of it, and immediately went on IG Live doing cocaine to prove he was untouchable. He's still making music, still dissing ops, still caught in the same cycles that took Jeff and so many others. But here's the tragic reality that suburban folks need to understand. Q50's drug use is directly tied to coping with trauma that would break most people. This isn't recreational use, isn't partying and having fun. This is self-medication. This is trying to survive day to day when every morning you wake up remembering you held your best friend's dying body. When you live in a world where violence could take you at any moment. When grief is a weight so heavy, you need chemicals just to get out of bed. There haven't been any many reports of Q50 overdosing or going to rehab, but given what we've seen, the escalating use, the public displays, the girlfriend confrontations, the cocaine on live after surviving an assassination attempt, it feels less like a question of if and more like when. His behavior has sparked ongoing discussions about Chicago drill's drug culture and how the genre both reflects and reinforces cycles of violence and substance abuse. Q50's story is still being written, but the trajectory is troubling as hell. He's channeled his grief into music that's blown up his career. His album, Long Live, My Bruda He Probably Killed, Yo Bruda, has been both praised and criticized for its raw emotion and its glorification of the same street life that killed his brother. Tracks like BH4L and Don't Blink or Stare have topped charts, with Jeff's posthumous verses keeping their collaboration alive even in death. But at what cost? Q50 is making money, building a career, getting recognition, but he's doing it while destroying himself in slow motion, using drugs to numb the pain of the very losses that are fueling his art. It's a vicious, tragic cycle, and everybody watching can see where it ends. This is Q50's tragic life since Lil Jeff died, a young brother with real talent, with a career taking off, with people who love him and want to help, but who seems determined to follow his homie into the grave, one pill and one line at a time. And unless something changes, unless Q50 finds a reason to fight for his life, the way he fought to save Jeff's on that Woodlawn street, this story can only end one way. The question is, will anybody be able to reach him before it's too late? Or will Q50 become another name on the ever-growing list of young drill rappers whose talent got buried alongside them, casualties of a culture that glorifies violence and drugs until the bill comes due? And the bill always comes due, fam. Always. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.